All right, welcome to a subset of the rebuild. One of the defining aspects of Newfangled is our technical undergirding, the infrastructure we've always been built on. And for, let's see, 31 years, so 28 of our 31 years, Dave Mello here has been instrumental in that. And he's been outright leading it for Iris is 16 years.
That's a great way to keep track of that number.
When I started as an intern in 2000, Dave had already been with us for 2 years. Dave started when he was 17 years old, and he saved my ass every single day. I didn't know what I was doing, and we're very much a dev company at that time, and vast majority developers on staff. And there was one really nice guy, but not the most social guy, as some developers are. And he sat next to me, and Dave was all the way across the room, like as far away from me as possible. And there's other guy sitting right next to me. And I turned to ask this guy a question, and he wouldn't even look at me. He didn't have headphones or anything. He could hear me. He just would completely ignore me. Like completely. I've never experienced anything like it. And Dave we're on all the chairs with wheels. He'd wheel over across the room and sit next to me. He's like, very kindly explain what an H1 tag is, you idiot. But he didn't say you idiot. Oh my gosh. And there's so many times in those early days where I was like, what am I doing here? I do not belong here. And we're going these big walks through Providence, Dave and I, and here to encourage me, inspire me. And every day he was building the coolest shit. And he was 17 years old. At this point, he was 19 years old. And he was building the coolest shit. Dave is just a creator. He's just a creator. He actually went to art school. He's a photographer. He has a deep love of music, of food. He just understands creation. And the art he primarily wields it through happens to be tech. And so we're so lucky to have him. He's an incredibly dear friend. And so because there's so many marketers out there doing a lot of AI, and there's a lot of great marketing stuff going on with AI, there's a very, very real layer of AI development, actual development, that requires, if not hand coding per se, sometimes, but not hand coding per se, a developer, a engineer's mindset. And that's a very different mindset than a marketer's mindset or a designer's mindset or a writer's mindset. And Dave is that person and has guided all of our development for basically the entirety of Newfangled's history. So that's why we're going to be doing these tech talks. We'll call them something more interesting than that, but for now, that's what the calendar invite says. To get into specific topics that relate to the more technical side of AI. And AI is a deeply technical thing, as we all know. So Dave, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Of course. And think about how different things would have been if my chair did not have wheels all those many years ago. It would have been a whole different path.
If they had Fitbits back then, you would have gotten a lot of steps in. And you're joining us from Wales today, as evidenced again by the beautiful dog wallpaper.
Yeah, we've been here for 3 weeks on holiday, and I'm still not used to the wallpaper. I don't think I will be by the time we leave. But that's okay.
That's for the best.
Yeah,
for the
that's
best.
fair.
Yeah. Okay, so we want to talk about vibe creating. I had said vibe coding, and Dave corrected me as vibe creating. So let's talk about that, that realm, because it's a very hot topic. It's very powerful. It's very exciting. But let's talk about the important details of it.
Yeah. And, vibe creating, I think, is important because vibe coding is kind of a misnomer, because pretty much all software development at this point is done through the harness of AI. That is the way that code is produced and evaluated and tested and deployed. And if you're not doing that now, you will be in 6 months. And that's just absolutely the way that works. Creating, because I think a lot of the underlying principles are just as applicable to what should you use this to code as you should, say, what should you use this to design or perhaps even write or do other things. So I like vibe creating quite a bit. And for this conversation, I think what we should think about is, because again, there's so many different ways you can create with AI. You can use off-the-shelf AI builders to build an application. You can build an entire internal development ecosystem so that your entire dev team uses AI to create things. All of those are vibe creating. But I think what a lot of people listening here might be interested in is, I've sat down, I've started using Claude, and it's let me build a thing. What can I do with that thing? What is safe to do with that thing? What is an appropriate level of creation that makes sense versus where should I draw the line? Where should I perhaps stop and bring in somebody who's done this before?
Hmm.
And there's a few principles there that I think are important, more so than saying like here's the line, because it's really the principles that drive the answer. So the first
Great.
thing that I should get out of the way is that as an experimenter, you should be creating as much as you possibly can. We've never been in a place where you can experiment, you can push the edge of what you can do without having a technical background or a design background or a English literature background. Like there is just so much that we can create and accomplish and learn from that you should be pushing yourself to do that as much as possible. So there is nothing that's off the table from an experimentation standpoint. And that's really where you'll learn where the boundaries are for you personally. So let's think about something, Mark, I think that you've experienced. You experienced this quite early, is that you could use Claude and you could use it to build a actual website, like
Yes.
something that looked like a website. And you before, you either would have had to do that by hand, which you did a long time ago, or you would have had to use something like Wix and like use like a drag and drop interface. But this like just took your ideas and built a fully functional website.
Immediately.
And
Yeah.
immediately. And then you
Yeah.
were able to iterate on it, make changes. And I think you said this yesterday in another context, but then that was an immediate thought partner for you to then build on your ideas and make things better. And that's amazing.
Yes.
So right there, that could be the end of the journey if that's all you needed it to do. If you just wanted to use this as a way to learn how a website or how your ideas should flow, that's a great use for it. But then what if you wanted to share that website with somebody else? Well,
Mhm.
is it an internal website? Is it something that is going to share information with the team? Is it something that the public is going to see? So those questions right there will give you an answer. If it's something that the world will see, then you probably want to spend a few more minutes thinking about it than if it's something you just want to share with somebody else in the company. Then you need to think about, what are all the things that I haven't quite considered? Like you can, your first step is going to be, is this right? And that's true across the board, whether it's a website or a fully fledged application. And that's something we'll be able to kind of touch on. Like, was this done properly? And if you're building like a 1 or 2 page marketing site, the answer to that for the most part is just, let me look at it and see if it looks right. And you are well equipped to be the judge of that. You can say, this is correct.
Good
This
enough,
is not
yeah.
correct. Good enough. This looks right. And this idea of like, are you able to be the judge? I think is going to be the through line here, because
Mm.
this is where it starts. If
Are
you're
you
creating,
are you equipped? Do you have the expertise, the proper expertise to be an accurate judge? Is what you're saying
correct.
of
And
X thing? Okay.
but what's interesting is, your AI friend Claude is also an accurate judge, and
Mhm.
but is not necessarily going to give you something that has gone through the entire cycle of judgment.
Yes.
Claude will have given you a website, perhaps, but it will not perhaps have asked all the questions that one needs to say this is something that should get published and indexed and the world should see. It also, to tie this over to creating, visually, it also might not be the best expert on the first pass of if this matches our brand standards as well as it should. So you can then push back on Claude and say, oh, well, actually look at our brand standards. Does this match? Actually review what you built. Does this function properly? Look at this on a mobile device, because Claude can do that. Just say, take a screenshot of this at this resolution. Like, does it work? And do that for everything and have it do that. And, or you could say, what are some things that I should do? Like, and it might tell you, well, you should look at this on mobile. You should make sure that it does X, Y, and Z.
Well,
You
yeah.
know?
So as you start routing those things off and thinking about my posture, again, yes, I started as a developer and ended up really loving it, actually, and then somehow became a sysadmin for Newfangled for a minute. So I liked the tech side of things, but once I got into the other side of it, my skill set was better applied elsewhere. And then I haven't touched a line of code since 2004, probably, maybe 5. And so when I was vibe coding the Newfangled Frontier site, it's like, what part is the fun and interesting part for you? And this is for like any life pursuit. It could be cooking, could be photography, music, whatever. For me, the fun part was the initial creation. Like, oh wow, okay, I can like say, do this, I see that, okay, change that, and then you're in it and you're in that flow and like you're experiencing that raw creation. And then when I hear you start saying, well, how does it look in this port? I was looking at this, I'm like, oh God, no.
Right. Well,
I don't want to deal with that stuff.
That's super important. And it's important
It's
because
critical.
because AI, the tools that we use, they are designed to make you think that you're very smart and you've done a very good job. That is how they get your brain
Yeah.
to fire off chemicals so you feel
Yep.
the high when you're using it. It's going to say, "Oh, you did a great thing here.
Wow.
Wow, you're
Good
absolutely right.
job.
It should be blue." Like all of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's not designed to say, "Well, hold on a second, this looks cool, but it's
You
nowhere
idiot.
near ready to do blank." And that's
Right.
where the questioning is still required. Now, the
Yes.
questioning is something that's always been part of the development process, but you don't need to be a developer to do that questioning, but it doesn't go away,
Yeah.
right? Just using AI doesn't make all that stuff go away. You still have to make sure that what you've done is correct, and correct is a moving needle based upon what it is you're trying to do.
Mm.
If it's a website, correct is, does it look right? Okay, great, you can do that. Does it work on all the different devices out there? Well, Claude or other tools are really good at building mobile code. It probably does, but you should probably check. And it might not have done it the way that you wanted it to, or it might have hidden
Yeah.
a thing in the menu. You look at that.
Yeah.
One thing that, code generators, particularly like in a Claude or a ChatGPT interface, will do is they really like to build like a single page app, like
Yes.
a JavaScript website,
Love
which
it.
is a
They love
super
it.
super fast way to get it, because otherwise they would have to build like a system to manage pages.
Yeah.
And the issue there is, we could argue all day about, is SEO dead? GEO is not. And a lot of the principles there apply. And what it's going to spit out is probably not going to have pages. It's definitely not going to have metadata or things that speak to an LLM. It's not going to be set up for an LLM to crawl it properly.
Mm.
And those are all important things that you need to make sure it does. And
Mm.
it's, unless you tell it or ask it to, you don't know if it did. So,
Yeah.
so again, you don't have to be a developer. You could just ask it, okay, well, I want to take this and send it live. What are, give me a list of all the things that we need to check. And it might go
Yeah.
down the list. And then you need to ask it, well, check this, check this, check this. And then push it again and ask for more things.
Yeah.
But then what if you want to put a form on the site? Okay, so now we've gone from a brochure to something that does a thing. And a form is probably the most simple thing that it can do. And if you're just vibe coding this like using JavaScript, it'll build you a form. That form's not going to do anything. So really what you should ask is, well, should I use another system to drop a form in here? Because I don't want to have to build a form manager. Like, that's stupid, and that would be terrible. Let me use another form processing ecosystem that would let me drop that in. And Claude might offer that up, but it probably won't. So you need to ask it, and then you need to go get it and put it in and make sure it works. And you need to test that. And you can ask Claude to test it. Claude can fill out the form and maybe use the API to see if the submission is there and make sure it went to your email and all of that. But like, you need to do all those things.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, it's like, well, maybe we should have just used WordPress, right? Because WordPress does all of those things out of the box, which Claude probably wouldn't have told you when you started.
No.
Because it didn't know that. It didn't know all these requirements. It didn't know all of that. So then it's a question of, okay, well, do you reverse engineer what you did, spin up a WordPress environment? You can use Claude to do that. Claude can walk you through how to like sign into WordPress.org and set up a free site. And then Claude can build you templates. And that's probably the best way to do it. Mark, when you built the prototype for the Frontier site, that's exactly what we did. We took what you did and we just kind of tore it apart and used the layouts you created as a prototype, but then underneath it, we decided to put an actual WordPress foundation because it handled things like, I say real, but it was a structure that had the concept of pages with metadata, with SEO and GEO facing things that happened automatically, with forms that we knew worked. Like all of that stuff was just easier to use an ecosystem for than to just keep on vibe coding it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. And that I think is like a really excellent snapshot of what Claude can and cannot do today. Because I'm not using Claude Code for any of it. You use Claude Code. And I think that right there is noteworthy. You glanced over it really quickly about 10 minutes ago, but you have spent your entire career, the majority of your life now, as a coder. And, you write code. You're an engineer. You're an R&D guy. You're all the things to Newfangled, but you write a lot of code. You always have. Except this year, you really have hardly written any actual code. And I think that's a really, really big deal that I don't think people are getting. There's still a lot of developers out there who are still writing a lot of code. I think they're intimidated. They're scared. It's hard to learn a new thing. They don't understand it. But, that sound clip you had about 10 minutes ago, that if you're not doing it now, you're going to be doing it, like that has changed. That has changed, I think, permanently, unless this stuff just disappears.
Or
That
people start paying more money for bespoke handwritten code, which
For what purpose?
For what purpose?
Yeah,
Exactly.
you've created
Yeah.
so many incredible things this year. Like, I have no idea what's going on behind that screen at all, and I don't care.
Right.
I care about what gets created, and your creation has hit overdrive, which is saying a lot, because there's always an overdrive. But this snapshot.
But
Okay.
here's the thing, though. So when you say that I haven't written a lot of code, or people throw around like, Claude wrote our most recent version of blah blah blah. Like, yes, that's all true, but a human guiding that system built the thing, and 100% true. And the guy who first wrote Linux has been talking about this a whole lot. And
Rasmus? Rasmus was PHP.
Linus.
Yeah.
But he comes out at this pretty strong. And this, like, when assembler first came out, before that, people were writing in zeros and ones. And then after that, and people got tired of doing it. It was hard. So they wrote programming languages so they didn't have to write zeros and ones. And then they used a compiler to create the zeros and ones, but they never started saying the compiler wrote this application.
Well,
right?
my dad worked on a mainframe at MIT, and he didn't write zeros and ones. He had a punch card.
Sure,
he didn't even write zeros and ones.
But like the entire history of computer programming has been programmers who are lazy trying to make easier ways to build things so they can build more things. Like, that's just the whole story. And this is just brilliant. The latest version of that story. I didn't come up with that, but I love to repeat it.
Yeah, that is so smart. That's exactly right.
Because my time is spent, yes, I'm not writing code, but I'm building all of the things to make sure, like, think about all of the examples I just rattled off for the things you need to check to make sure a website that you've vibe coded is right. Now, imagine that for a system that's processing billions of rows of data and synthesizing it and doing all kinds of stuff. Well, think about all of the things you need to check to make sure that it was done properly. And that's the easy part, because AI is good at writing code the way that it thinks it's supposed to, but really making sure that it's doing it in the way that it should be, I think, is the really, really hard thing that we're never really going to solve. And that's gotten exponentially harder now that one of our programmatic tools is AI, which was never true before. Think about it. We now have a programming language that has functions that sometimes just don't work.
Right.
Or sometimes return data that's wrong.
Deep inside of it.
Like if you called a C function, like, it's always going to return the same thing, and you can build an application around it. Now we're building applications calling things that can do magic, but the magic sometimes doesn't work. So what do you have to put in place to make sure that doesn't just bring the whole thing crashing to the ground, or even worse, gives you something that's the wrong idea? Right.
Yeah. I remember you and I went to the O'Reilly Open Source Conference in San Diego in 2001. And we were all excited about it. And we were, newfangled. We decided, our CTO at the time, who made a lot of amazing decisions for us, decided we're going to be on PHP. We're going to be a lamp shop, Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. And so we were all about PHP. But I remember that conference bumping into the occasional, like, real developers, like, oh, PHP, like, that's for, like, kids who don't understand coding. I need to really see the core function, so I only write in C, the letter C, and for those who are not familiar, And so that's the same thing you're saying. That's like a massive extrapolation of that same idea.
Sure. Yeah. But in either case, if you don't have a firm grasp on what the business use is and what it actually needs to do, and make sure that it does that thing, that it doesn't matter what you're using, what tool you're using. And that's where my time is spent now, is putting together the framework so that I can use AI to produce more, but also to know that it's doing what it's supposed to, which sometimes I don't even know until I've built it. Because again, I'm using these tools to create AI-based systems that are inherently non-deterministic, which means I need to figure out what that even means when I'm building an application. And we're just talking about a website now in a lot of ways. Like, the example is a website, but the kinds of things we're building for ourselves and our clients, like the client knowledge agent, where it's pulling in all the Slack, everything from G Drive, everything from Zoom, like it's pulling everything from Harvest for parts of it, like it's pulling in data from all these systems and collating the system so we can go and ask it, hey, this client, what are they up to today? Or what they're in market right now? Like, all that stuff. Like, that's real coding. I mean, like, forget about that. Like, an agency is not going to vibe code their way to that. Not in a million. Well, I should say not a million years. Today, it's like functionally impossible for a marketer just to vibe code their way to that kind of thing. And there's two parts of that. So there's like the mechanistic pieces, like let me get the code working that will pull in data from Slack. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. I can build a system to do that and be pretty sure that it's working. But then the hard part is that second thing you said. How does it synthesize properly? How does it take 27 different signals that are coming from all these different places that are messy, and how do you then give that to AI and use AI as one of your programmatic tools to then produce something that's greater than the sum of its parts? And it's not going to work the same way every time. Like
Yeah.
that's the part that's hard. That's the part
Yes.
that's really hard.
Right.
And you're
Right.
definitely not going to vibe code that because you can't. You have to
You
do
can't.
it. You have to understand it. You have to know what it should do and what it shouldn't do, and see that one time where it's elevating a thing that maybe it's not supposed to, or it should have done this thing differently. Like you have to
Yeah.
understand your subject matter so well.
Yeah.
And that's where the work comes. That's the equivalent mark of you having to then go off and asking all the questions about what should I test before I go live. Like that's the
Right.
stuff you just like if you skip it, it might look amazing and you'll feel like you did an amazing job, but it's useless.
Right. Yeah, and that's part of the reason why we're seeing so often now that it's the new people in a given industry that are having the hardest time, because one, AI is replacing more of their like entry level function, and it does do that pretty effectively in various ways. But two, they don't have the expertise to properly wield AI. They could create a cool thing, but they don't have the, decade, 2 decade, 3 decades of experience to know like, oh, okay, I need to do and so it's a weird thing now where it's really an expert's tool in many ways, but it's also sort of undercutting the next generation of experts. It's that part of it I'm concerned about. That's probably different. That is a different topic for a different day.
That's true and not true, because the more that the machine can handle the writings of the zeros and the ones like we used to do, the less important it is that the next generation understands how to write the zeros and the ones necessarily. So that becomes less of an issue. But what becomes more of an issue is that people out of the gate have the deep curiosity and problem-solving instinct that it takes to actually do programming. And that's the thing that perhaps you learn over 20 years. Perhaps you're just born with it, but that skill hasn't changed, right? That has to be there. If you're just looking to write code and have it pass a unit test and then ship it, the machine can do that now. That isn't what we need you for anymore. We need you to think so much bigger.
Mm-hmm,
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in some ways it's kind of like that guitar player video game where you like buy it and you get a plastic guitar and like you hit the buttons on it and like a anime guitar players playing on the screen, like, and some of those people kind of thought they knew how to play an instrument, but then you give them an actual instrument and they have no idea what to do with it,
Yeah.
And for you too, like your point, like, yeah, you grew up on PHP, you probably never had to get down to the C level to do some specific thing. Maybe you did once or twice, I don't know, but like you probably never had to because PHP covered that.
And the people that were working in C never had, usually never went any lower than that. Although sometimes you did have to go if you really wanted to eke out performance. But right now, it's not a question of having the machine write code and then a human review the code. It's a question of having the machine write code and then having a machine review the code and then having another machine review this part of the code and then another machine do this thing and then elevate this stuff for you. And all of those things have to get orchestrated and vetted. But you can do that without ever seeing code. And the idea of a programming language is probably limited. I mean, everything right now is Python, but we'll see about that. It's just a question of what needs to get created and what's the most effective way to get there.
Absolutely. Dave, this is everything I was hoping it was going to be. I'm really getting into like the history of it too, thinking about how what's going on right now it's the exact same pattern that's been happening for better part of the past 60 years. Really interesting. I want to wrap with a quote that you had yesterday that just really got me. I think sums all this up beautifully. When, our audience is thinking about vibe coding a thing and whatever, vibe creating, how far are they going to take it? And the quote you had yesterday was, okay, if you want to deploy a thing, if you want to put it out there in the world and it matters, like it's something that needs to work, if you feel confident that at 4 a.m. when it breaks that you can get up and you can fix it, then great, do it. Go put it out there in the world. If not, maybe you get someone to help you put it out there in the world. If it matters to you, if you rely on it. And putting it out there in the world could be a public facing website. It could be an internal app that your company runs on. It could be anything. But if you know you can fix it, then make it live. If you're not really sure how it got made in the first place, maybe it's a prototype and you bring it to the experts to build the real version, the production version.
Right. Yeah, and I would just add to that, or if you don't care, if
If
it's
you don't care.
if it's just a one-off thing that doesn't impact anybody, great. But if it matters and you can fix it, great.
Great.
If not, don't.
Yeah, or get some help. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. All right. Thanks, Dan. This was great. I can't wait to do many, many, many more of these. For our audience, if you have any topics that you'd like us to discuss that you want us to go really, really deep on, Dave loves those things, and we can go as deep as you want. And so we're happy to do that anytime. Thank you very much. Enjoy
Of course.
your dogs.
Thank you.